everybody's everyone was excited for Batgirl. Like it was the silver lining, like for all the screw ups that's been happening in DC from Flash to whatever, you know. And
Yeah,
I was more excited about Batgirl than Black Adam.
Oh, there we go. So expectations are high in some quarters. Were you like that way, Gift?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I completely forgot Batgirl was getting made. I remember it was being brought up by Joss Whedon to do it, and then he dropped out, and that was the last I heard about it. I didn't even know they had filmed, let alone was almost completed. I didn't even realize that the guys who did Moon Knight are the directors for Batgirl. Like, one, kudos to them, since Bad Boys for Life slowly like getting this really monumental rise going on. But I didn't realize like Batgirl was until they talked about canceling. And I was like, wait, hold up. Wait, you guys actually moved forward with that? It wasn't more than a list. And then, to kind of hear that it was already in post-production, which means they still were going to have to do reshoots. Like, there's always going to be another set of reshoots that were going to kick in. But to have spent that much and done it, I mean, that's significant. But then I also remember this is DC, and this is DC studios basically being run by what's his name? The Japanese guy, Haneda, who hasn't been good. That was under the fist of Jeff Johns, who is horrible in running things. It's the continued uncertainty that is their storyline or what to take, whether this was an individual one, knowing that now Michael Keaton was a part of this one, which we get before we get the Flash movie, which would have only made sense to be able to bring these trifectas of Batmans together, which this Flash movie that has no idea whether it needs to be released or not because of Miller's mental dysfunction that's occurring. It was just like, I mean, it's hard for me to be like, you guys should drop it on HBO Max, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm pretty sure. And the one screenshot we got, which was, again, it's pre-edit, so you take it for what it is. But looking at it, I was like, I'm seeing why they would say this looks like a high-end bad episode of a show. Boy. But they haven't done anything good. But again, this is coming off an AT&T WB, so AT&T really didn't care that much about Warner Brothers. They just wanted a reason for people to have to keep buying telecommunication, buying internet service. So,
well, I mean, it's so they actually screened a couple of early previews, and the review and the feedback was just god awful, right? And it must have been so god awful that they thought it is better that we don't even release
light of day.
Not on the cinemas, not on the
HBO Max
streaming,
because it was supposed to be built for HBO Max.
Yeah, and it's so bad that it must be considered. It is going to have a negative. It's not going to just like, oh gosh, that was terrible. Let's wait for the next one. It was going to bring down the DCEU to another level of horrendous levels that maybe PR-wise they couldn't have recovered from. That sounds like a really bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, even at that, like, you have already very low expectations. So I guess it really, and I obviously I guess the pandemic played it a lot into how the quality was going to be. But I also learned that some of those screenings are iffy. Like,
I just, you again put yourselves in the they put 90 million into this.
Yeah.
And if it's a total train wreck, like it wasn't as if some people came out saying, it was a bit substandard. People must have come out dry reaching. But And so they must have come to the idea, because this thing will never see the light of day.
It will never. It can never see the light of day. This is
because they're going to get a tax write-off
film.
for it. They're going to get a tax write-off it, which means they are legally never allowed to show this to anyone at any time.
It means that they cannot make money off of it by any means necessary. So what the only way that it could work is if they leaked it, quote, onto the internet, but it couldn't be on the HBO Max platform. They just cannot make any revenue from it whatsoever.
Yes. Imagine being one of the people who
even indirectly they can't make revenue of it anymore.
No.
Well, because they've gone to the government and said, we've made a loss on this.
We made a loss, yes.
Said, there's your tax back. If they turn around and make money of it, so you hang on, you've made money on this.
Now you got to pay the taxes off of that.
You pay the tax back.
Yeah.
Like not even for merchandise, for example. Like they're not going to release.
I don't know.
They can release the movie for free and then just sell merchandise or bundle it with.
Well, again, for them to do that, it would have to depend on like where would they have to put it. The only place they could put it would be on YouTube, and then to demonetize it, and then to make sure that they can't make anything.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. The merchandising is an interesting one because if they made merchandising, but the movie's not out, they're not making. It's not the movie that's selling the merchandise. I guess that would be all right. This is unbelievable stuff.
And actually, the other reason why they probably couldn't do it is if the contracts that they made was in the form that the directors or actors received any immediate back end, or they were supposed to be paid a percentage, they can get sued for basically sabotage. Basically, what happened with Disney and Scarlett Johansson. So it's not worth it even putting it up.
So I did my little research, and no one got paid at the back end of this. It was all up front. So that's
okay. So the loss would just be under. Wow.
Yeah, it'll be so. But you imagine all the creatives are working, the actors and the people who poured 2 years of their lives into that film.
This is 2 movies that Michael Keaton has come back as Batman. Neither are yet to be seen. One is guaranteed not to be seen, and the other one is like almost partially. I mean, probably will be seen, but who knows?
He's gone on to say that he never watches the movies.
Yeah, I saw that.
So he doesn't care.
I was excited for Michael Keaton to come back, you know.
Well, he still might. The Flash is supposed to still be coming out.
I just don't know how to market it.
Because they just can't put Ezra Miller on any press junkets or anything.
I really don't understand how come Marvel, like, they're able to put like their talent in line, you know, but DC somehow their talent just all of them have like a lot of them have issues like Amber Heard.
It's the Feige of it all. It is the Feige of it all. And also Warner Brothers is a deeply insecure brand. And it's been a deeply insecure brand since at least the mid 2000s. Like, yeah, I would even say since the early 2000s, because of the fact that other than like the Batman movies and Warner Brothers has its relative hits, but I'm talking about from a DC standpoint of just being able to perform. I mean, DC has always been an insecure brand when it comes to its live action movies. The only ones that had always done well were Batman, and then it really was only like 2 Superman movies that did well. Then everything else.
You're just talking about the comic book stuff, so you're not talking about other DC stuff that's done all right.
I'm talking about just DC movies, live action movies, DC live action movies. As a live action movie brand, has been a deeply insecure one. They had their powerhouse with Batman, but they've never really developed anything else surrounding that. And I think the problem has always been, especially because Warner Brothers has just been passed around, especially over the last 25 years. Remember, it was Warner Brothers was at like the top of their game in the mid 90s, then got sold to AOL, then got sold to AT&T, but even before AOL, they got sold to the Times. It was Times Warner, then Warner AOL, and then it became Warner AT&T. Like that Warner Brothers brand has just been passed around. You know, like it's a deeply insecure. So everything they do is always been about like, yo, how do they be able to make the money? Even like the Deep Dark Knight series,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which was a pinnacle moment for them. They've been really trying to recreate that from their hero stories, and then they've been trying to find a bigger lift from their other ends. Even think of it like Godzilla versus King Kong. While the previous movies, the Godzilla movies did in the box office, and then the one that should have taken it over the top got knocked out by the pandemic. So like, and then once again, Warner Brothers is sold to now Discovery, who is known for dismantling everything. Like I've not had great relationships with Discovery.
So you've heard of what's their name? You've heard of the Acts of Savslav. Have you heard of that?
The Axel.
He is the guy who stepped in. He must be.
Yeah, the CEO. Yeah, the man's a swiper.
He's the guy who has been cutting and slicing and beating and bruising up on. They call it the Axe of Savslav because he just like. So this is the rumor I heard. Warner Brothers was making these Clint Eastwood movies, like because you know Clint Eastwood had a good run at one point.
Yeah.
With, you know, Gran Torino and the movie about the shooter, and all that stuff. And so they just let him keep making movies because he was a nice guy. The Acts of Savslav come in.
Movies that made money. They were cheap movies that made money.
Well, his last few movies didn't make any money, but they let him keep doing it. The Acts of Savslav came and sacked everyone who made those decisions at the end.
Yeah,
apparently, and he's the one who has brutally knocked off Batgirl. Said not making money. It's time now. Whether he's at Kevin Feige or not,
he's
unsure. He's obviously making ballsy. Like I've heard people say they think this guy's the best thing since sliced bread because he's making the ballsy decisions. But that's not what makes Marvel Marvel.
Yeah,
it's not just been able. Because Kevin Feige has. There's been a couple of actors I think he has dinged off. Like he has cracked the whip on a couple of. I can't remember, but there's a couple of actors who've never returned back.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah. He has.
It would be dude from The Incredible Hulk.
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton. And
Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard. But I think Terrence Howard was a Pearl Mutter situation more so than a Feige situation.
But he knows, like he knows where he's going. He doesn't have to come in there and cut off dead wood and clear the decks. It's all positive direction. And if you come on board, I'd imagine with this MCU, you come on to a very clear cut idea of what's expected of you, what you're doing, and where you're going. There's no because it's going somewhere. Well, imagine if you walk into Warner Brothers and you're these people working on Batgirl, you probably have one guy walk in with a suit one day and tell you what they want, another guy come in the next day. So it is a dog's breakfast from the looks of things.
I think over in general, Disney is just a better run company. No matter, despite its faults, it's just a better run company. You have a consistent CEO like Bob Iger, like Bob Iger was whenever he bought Marvel's Star Wars and Pixar. Like you just have a better CEO versus Warner Brothers, where it goes again. Like they just have not had that person at the helm, let alone for their DC flagship. They just don't have that person at the helm. Though the irony of it all is still their animated department has been absolutely killer. Like it's cheap production relatively that has made a return on them, but they don't follow it as a blueprint, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, but again, we look at. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
But you look across at other French movie universes, Star Wars, the Fox X-Men, even King Kong Godzilla actually has probably done a passable job, but it's very hard. Like no one's pulled it off. It's probably asking a lot of DCEU to pull things off because no one else. I mean, Star Wars 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's what I see them.
Right.
But none, and again, none of them have a Feige. They don't have a strong personality who sits at the top, who calls the shots, says, this is the direction we're going. You step out of there, you're not in the MCU. You step over there, you're not in the MCU. But you can play with all these other things.
Let's remind our friends to please click on the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos out.
Subscribe.
Subscribe!
Die. Oh, die.